Hello, guys. We're going to hop into another guest episode of The Happy Doc. Today we have Disha Spath. She runs a website, blog, Facebook page called The Frugal Physician. Now, I always record these introductions after having the interview with the guest, and we had so much fun during the interview. We were laughing most of the time, so it was a really great interview. And we touched on the mindset around money, thinking about different concepts around what it means to really, feel comfortable with your money, understanding things like value systems that you have around money, thinking about some of the tips or simple tweaks or hacks that one can use to be a little bit more frugal. We also touch on the current climate with COVID-19 and thinking about what is our strategy right now with money. So some simple ideas, fun conversation. Please check out The Frugal Physician. You can literally just search on Google and you'll find the website. Look at the blog. There are countless blog posts on tips to be more frugal. And if you want to check out the website, just search thefrugalphysician.com and enjoy all of the links and the great resources that are on the website. Please enjoy the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Happy Doc. I'm excited. I'm always excited. You guys know I'm excited when I record these. For today's episode, we have Disha Spath. She's an internal medicine physician. She also hosts the Frugal Physician website, blog, Facebook page. We talked about it just prior to this, social media. So she's all over the place in terms of the Frugal Physician. I'm very excited to have you, Disha. How are you doing today?
Hey, Taylor. I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Awesome.
I'm so excited.
Awesome. Great. So just to get us started off, what got you interested in medicine?
Oh, wow. I think that's super cheesy. I wanted to help people. I just didn't see myself doing anything else. Ever since I was like 5, I knew I wanted to be a doctor. My pediatrician was like the coolest person ever in my eyes when I was growing up. And I just wanted to be like him and, be the calming force in someone's life and like be there for them in their worst moments.
Amazing. 5 years old. That's young.
Yeah, I was a precocious 5-year-old.
I was gonna say, so nothing else entered your consciousness. You're just like, let's go for medicine.
Well, it definitely got more complicated as I went along. I knew I wanted to do medicine, but then the whole practicality of it came into question. And then I fell in love with jazz and I really wanted to be a jazz musician. And then there were a lot of there's a couple of soul searching months, trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do right before medical school. And then through medical school too, I took a year off to really just think it over and make sure that's what I wanted to do. And ended up coming back and finishing it up. So yeah, there were times where I questioned, but I came back to it.
Yeah, jazz music. That's cool. What instruments do you play?
I play piano and guitar. Those are kind of my main ones. I started off on the Indian drums called tabla when I was like very young. Okay. And I still play those once in a while, like in our religious ceremonies and things like that.
Amazing.
Mostly piano.
I love that. I also play piano, so that's very cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
nice.
I guess we'll have to hit the keys sometime.
That would be awesome. Have a Zoom jam session.
I know, right? I mean, with all this COVID-19 stuff happening right now, I've just spent so much time playing on my keyboard over here because you might as well get creative, right?
Oh my gosh, right? Yeah. It's funny. I don't feel the need to make music as much as I do when I'm really stressed out or anxious or like sad in some way. And then I just like have this need, like I have to sit and just let it out. Like, please just let me let it out. And once I do, I feel so much better.
Yeah. I don't know how to explain that. Yesterday, actually, it's funny we're talking about this. Yesterday, I was just like, I need to be creative right now. And I just sat in front of the keyboard. I just messed around with some melodies and, made up some chords and just went for it. And afterwards, awesome. I just felt so relieved. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You feel it building and then you let it out and it's just like this huge, like just explosion of energy that's no longer held inside you. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I felt so good afterwards. And the rest of my night was so much better.
That's awesome. That's
That's
really
great.
cool.
I love it. I love you play piano. That's awesome. I'm very passionate about like creativity and, people who play different instruments or have an art that they do. So I think it's great that you do that. Just, before we get into, some of the other work that you're doing, do you feel like that has been something that's saved you, something that's helped you in terms of stress and getting through those times where school and residency was difficult?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it's like it's my crutch. It's my um, healthy crutch. Yeah, I can lean on it on music if I am really feeling. And usually, I end up doing it at my lowest points. Usually, and it gets me through. So yeah, absolutely, so key. I don't know if it's just because that's how my brain works or not, but I definitely need that right side every once in a while.
Wonderful. I love it. That's great. So let's hop into this concept of the frugal physician. I was reading on your blog a little bit about how things got started for you. And, finances is something we're not really taught. Medicine is kind of a confusing place because on one end, you take on a huge loan burden. You don't make much and you spend an incredible amount of time in training. When you become a resident, you start to make money, but you're making way less than your friends do who like went into other fields or specialties or what have you. And then all of a sudden, your income quadruples. And there is no other world or no other profession where that happens. So I'm just curious, like, we're taking on this huge loan debt. We're going through this process. We're starting to make some money. When did that idea of crap, wait a second, I need to figure out what to do with my loans. I need to figure out how to take it. Like, I need to take control of my finances. What happened for you?
So what happened for me was I realized that I had separated from making money work for me, and I was so just working for money. And realizing that it was making me anxious to the point where I was not enjoying time with my family because I was too worried about money. And that's my breaking point was not breaking point, but I guess my epiphany moment was I was on my maternity leave, my second maternity leave, and I was so worried about money that I was sewing a big old cover to a couch that I probably should have just bought, but I didn't want to spend the money, and instead of spending that time with my baby who had just come out, and hanging out with him, which is what I should have been doing on maternity leave, I was separating from him to go sew,
Right.
and around, and, and I was listening to the White Coat Investors audiobook at the same time. And it all just kind of came, a big realization came that, I just needed to, I did it wrong in the money sense, and I needed to fix some things, and I did.
Right. And that maternity leave, just to clarify, was that during residency or was that already as an attending?
That was as an attending. Both my maternity leaves were unpaid. And the first one was right after I finished residency and before I started my first job. And then the second one, I was a hospitalist. And so the time that we're not working, we don't get paid. So,
right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, you had this realization, right? You're trading your time for money, and then you notice this baby who deserves your time and love and energy. And you said you were sewing, right? And you're taking that energy and you're putting into something, and obviously you see that huge conflict, right?
Right.
So that was very powerful as you were saying it. And so what switch needed to be made? What tips, what mindset changes did you start to learn that made you make that shift?
So I had to realize that money was something I needed to get a handle on. And my spending, I especially needed to get a handle on aligning my spending with my values, because I was at that point spending just to try to make myself feel better or to try to make my house look a certain way, but I wasn't really spending the money or the time on things that I actually loved, things that I actually valued. I was trying to be someone else or please other people, but not myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the biggest key to me. So I kind of sat down. I was like, for me, first of all, I inflated my lifestyle. I got a bigger house, nice place, and tried to make it look as nice as possible. But when I had that conversation with myself of like, is this really actually important to me? And the answer was a resounding heck no. No, it's not. Like, it's really not important to me. What's important to me is freedom, being able to take my time and use it as I want and spend it with the ones that I love, the people like my family. And travel and, just being able to be kind of a vagabond if I want to, not being tied down by debt, not having big payments that I have to make, not working for money. Those were the things that are actually important to me. And I realized what I was doing was not aligned with that. So I just decided to change it.
I love that. Powerful. And you mentioned some of the values that you find important. You said family, freedom, travel, having that sense of not needing to work, but maybe working more so for enjoyment.
Right.
I think those are all things we all want.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's so true. Yeah. It's like, it seemed to me that I was being revolutionary, but it's not. That's most people, everybody wants that. Like, who doesn't want that? Right.
Yeah. And it's simple.
Yeah. Yeah. But sometimes we have to realize that, if we want that, then we're going to need to do something differently because not everybody has it. And the reason that not everybody has financial independence is because not everybody makes those choices of getting rid of debt and investing and spending wisely, rather than or spending intentionally rather than just kind of going along with what everybody else is doing. So if you want different results, you have to make different choices.
Absolutely. And I would say on average, I hate to say it, on average, most people are not making sensible choices.
Right.
But let's get into that. So we've kind of talked about it in the mindset and the ethereal sort of version of it. But let's get kind of pragmatic here for a second. It's the frugal physician for a reason.
Right.
Frugality itself has its own kind of connotation. I think your connotation is probably different than what people think. So when you say the frugal physician, when you think of the idea of frugality, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, for me, frugality was also kind of a bad word initially. I grew up poor and I didn't want to be frugal. But I came across frugality in terms of what it meant to be financially independent and making money work for you and making good choices with money. And that's how my definition evolved for frugality, from being like a tightwad to being intentional. And that's when I really started to embrace the term frugality. And I realized that frugality is simply spending what's on where it's important to you intentionally without thinking about, other people's expectation of you. It's from like an inside out type of spending.
Yeah. And that's powerful. And this podcast is about happiness. And, one of the things, I'm sure we're going to agree on this. One of the things we find in happiness, the things that make people most fulfilled, one of the parts is removing the voices, the interpretations, the views of family, friends, very close loved ones. Because if you want to be yourself, if you want to enjoy life, you have to do you. You have to be you.
Right.
And that's, I think I noticed this on your page as well. Your personal financial plan or what you want to do for your personal life, it's personal. It's for you. So your frugality plan or your ability to, your financial plan is going to be personal.
Right. Exactly. 100% personal. And the choices you make when you go to being more frugal, if that's what you're trying to do. And a lot of people are trying to do that in today's environment. I don't want to sit here and tell people this is how you should spend your money, because whatever I tell you is not necessarily going to be right because I'm not you, right?
Yeah.
I can't tell anyone else what matters to them. So unfortunately, or fortunately, you have to sit down and ask yourself, okay, what are like the things that I cannot sacrifice? And these are the things that make me really happy. And I don't care if it's $100 or $1,000, I want it. Like I need it. And that's what's going to make me happy. Okay, fine. Make room for that in your budget, but then you cut out the other stuff, the stuff that you really don't care about, but you're happening to just spend there. And a lot of the times people just don't know what they're spending or where their money's going. It kind of comes in, and a lot of this monthly billing stuff, like people know that that's how people spend, is once you sign up for a monthly thing, they can start withdrawing it, and you're going to forget that it's going out of your bank account. Right. And especially people aren't tracking what's going out of their bank account. A lot of times they start creeping up that value every month, cable companies, for example. And for the same service, they're charging more and we don't notice because it's going out of our account. So anyway, those kind of things, that's where you sit down and you just ruthlessly cut those things that are just not important. And you know what? Honestly, it doesn't even have to be that ruthless. Like as long as you start making those cuts, you're going to see it. All of it's going to add up to some savings, and that's going to add up to more savings as long as you sustain it. Yeah. It doesn't have to be painful.
So let's get a little bit more pragmatic. So step one sounds to me like if anyone wants to start listing their values, what's important, what's not important.
Big picture. Yes, exactly. First, you have to start at the big picture because if you start with the nitty gritty, everybody is going to lose focus and it's not going to be enjoyable. Like big picture is like, going from YOLO to like...
I love that.
Yeah. YOLO to like, okay, 5 and 10 years from now, like where can we find that balance between enjoying today and then having the life we also enjoy in 5 to 10 years? And what are the decisions we can make now to make 5 to 10 years better, or 15 to 20? Right. And so starting by dreaming with your a significant other, asking them like, just ideally, like, don't even worry about money. Like, we'll make it happen or whatever. Like, if you just had a genie, like what would be your perfect life, 10 years from now or 15 years from now, and then work towards that.
Yeah.
And so then come back around and then start with the frugality. And now, a lot of times now people are noticing, I think because of this recession coming up and the market downturn, people are noticing the importance of having an emergency fund, the importance of being frugal, because this is like us frugal folks, we're like, survivalist preppers for this kind of stuff, right? Yeah. I mean, this is kind of like the reason I am so debt averse is stuff like this happening and like life kind of turning upside down. And that happened in my life when I was young. And so, I that kind of prepared my mindset for it. But as I feel like this situation is kind of just trying to see the silver lining, because there's a lot of negative here too. This is a silver lining that we are fortunate to be able to learn from this. That this kind of black swan event happens, once in a lifetime. Right. Hopefully it'll just be once for us, but
yeah, absolutely. And I want us to get into that, like in terms of like, what are some COVID specific strategies? Well, I want to ask that, but I'll bookmark that for a second.
Okay. So, sorry, I'm getting ahead.
No, it's fine. I love it. Like, everything is great. So step one, we kind of talked about values. We talked about the idea of just knowing what that dream life is kind of going to look like, having that vision. Clearly, you actually mentioned this earlier, cutting out the stuff that is not valuable, right? Starting to notice, where that is. So how do we go? So we have the vision now, we have the idea. Now, how are we going to strengthen the frugal muscles? Because you have a very impressive story. When I was reading the story too, one of the things you wrote down about was paying down $100,000 of debt in 6 months. Now, not everyone does that. So how do we start to get to that?
Implement that.
Yeah. Like what did you do, or what do you recommend for people to start to get there?
Okay. So after we have the big picture, after we know what we want and what's important to us, then we sit down and look at today. Okay. Today, look at all right, be 100% truthful with yourself. Just write it down with you and your spouse. What debts do we have and what income do we have? That's it, right? So debt number 1, car, at what interest rate? Debt number 2, second car, what interest rate? 3, house, mortgage, an escrow versus rent, whatever it is. I guess rent doesn't count as debt, but still, list the debts that you have and how important it is for you to get rid of them. Okay. So now that once you have your debts and your assets sort of listed in a place that's safe just between you and your family, then you can think about, okay, how are we going to get rid of this? And where are we going to find the extra money to pay this stuff down faster than it's already scheduled? Mm-hmm. The way we find the money, you can either try to earn more, but every dollar that you earn as a physician, 30% is going to go to taxes. So earning more is certainly an option, but if you save that dollar, you get that entire dollar's value, right?
Right.
You don't have to pay extra tax on that. So it's a lot easier it's most effective to do both, increase your income and decrease your spending. But especially in times like these where it's more difficult to increase the income, decreasing the spending is a good way to go.
Right.
Now, so what if the people are like, all right, then how do I decrease my spending, right? So that's step 3 is finding that money.
That is you have the whole blog page is like, I saw one about red wine, for example, finding I love red wine specifically. So I was like looking at it.
Right. Play some piano and drink some red wine. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Red wine is like, I just love it. I mean, man, like it's beautiful.
This is turned into a wine show, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to stop the money conversation.
Yeah, seriously. It's okay. It's like it's 3:30 in the afternoon right now. Otherwise I'd totally be pouring myself a glass.
Well, now all the stores are closed. So I can't even, I just finished. I have, I'll get like the Boda box. And it's like, it actually you get like much more. I mean, it's talking about frugality. It's like $20 and you get like 3 bottles worth of red wine, and it's delicious.
That's true. It is pretty good. I will give you that.
I literally just gave an advertisement to Boda box. You should be paying me now anyways.
Affiliate relationship. Anyone?
I know, right?
I'm fortunate. We've got like a warehouse type wine store where I am, and they do like pickup still. So they'll just deliver it to my car. So I just do that, which is nice.
I'm so jealous.
Well, I think, the thing is these are the kind of things like, okay, so wine's important to me. I don't want to give that up. I like quality wine. And so instead of trying to cut it out and make myself miserable, I will certainly moderate it. So, I'm not an alcoholic, but, but still,
do you feel like you need to cut some of your drinking down? Are some of the people in your family getting annoyed?
I think my husband would only be annoyed if I drank his scotch. So he's fine with me and my wine.
Oh, that's too funny.
Well, but just finding ways, just looking around, because all it takes sometimes is just a Google search, and making that first effort to try to cut that price down and that monthly spend down. It doesn't take all that much effort. It just takes that intention. And once you start sitting down and looking at these expenses, and really, in order to know your expenses, you're going to have to look at them, right? And unfortunately, that's the hardest part of all this. Nobody really wants to budget, but when people ask me, how did you pay off so much debt so quickly? It's because I budgeted, that was my key. I used to hate it, but I don't hate it anymore. I love it, in fact. Because it really gives me, it has become like when I'm starting to find myself freaking out for no reason, like that time when I was like sewing that sofa cover when I shouldn't have been, like when I start finding myself freaking out, I sit down with my budget and my husband, and we, in that order, I'm just kidding.
I always look at my budget before my husband. That's the quote of this interview right now. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God. I'm like, I'm like,
it's like you're about to get like tucked in for bed and you have the budget on the wall and you stare at the sheet of paper first. Anyway.
It's a Google sheet. It's a Google sheet. I just get it on my iPad and like smoke it as I go to bed. No, that would mess up my numbers. Anyway, so I get my budget, and it actually brings me calm when I look at the numbers, because I'm like, more often than not, I realize that we have more than enough money that we need to cover the expense that's coming up that's stressing me out or whatever, Like more often than not, we'll find that we can afford it. Okay. And like chill out. Right. And if we can't, then we have a plan. We'll sit down and we'll have a plan for, okay, we'll budget it for the next 3 months, right? Or whatever this is, like we'll just save that money up and we'll earmark it for this. And then it takes that stress away, and that's one less thing to think about for me. And so that works really well for me for like from the emotional standpoint too.
Right.
But
so I was just going to say, in terms of what I'm hearing so far, if I could put like a theme on it, it's being very, you used the word intentional before, but just being very conscientious.
That's a good word.
And looking at like the true numbers and saying, wait a second, Taylor is buying a bottle of red wine every week.
Yeah, that's
it might be a little bit more. No, just kidding. But like, for example, right? Yeah. So I'd be like, wait a second, Taylor's bought 4 bottles of wine. I'm just using this as an example this month. Is there a bulk option? Is there something where we can do this a little bit more conscientiously so that maybe, let's say $80 a month becomes 30 or 20 or what have you? Is that kind of a good summary?
Yeah, exactly. I think I spent way more on that than that on wine when I was deciding to cut back, but that's okay. Yeah, I cut my final spending down by like 50% just by changing a habit. That actually made life easier for me, because what I was doing was like buying a bottle here and there, as the need arose for it, and I'm paying all kinds of markup for that. Right. And instead I just buy a case, a month or whatever, or every so often. Right. I buy it in bulk and then I have it. And it's at a really good price, made my life easier too, because I'm not having to go out and get wine, like when I'm cooking dinner. Right. So it works out in many different ways, but it's just a matter of just rethinking that habit. Yeah.
I'm going to have to put a disclaimer on this episode. I'm going to say, like, listen,
we are not
condoning excessive drinking. Like, anyways, I'm gonna have to think of something out. No, so let's go. You have so many blog posts. You really do it pretty systematically. You have a very specific topic.
Thank you.
For each sort of tip in terms of being frugal. For example, we talked about wine and being frugal. You had one post recently about COVID-19 and how that's impacting us. For this current time, what is your overall thinking about what we might need to do or what we need to think about to really take advantage of this time?
Take advantage of this time. So there are so many different things in the air right now, but the biggest takeaways that I am getting from this is the importance of having a written financial plan, something that's written when I'm not freaked out. And when these kind of things aren't happening, and being like, just getting on the same page with your spouse about, okay, so what are our goals and how are we going to get there? And what's our asset allocation? Like, what is our ideal asset allocation at this age, at the age that we're in? What percentage of bonds do we need to have? What percentage of stocks do we need to have? And then sticking to that, the importance of staying the course in this environment is probably the best thing that I've learned, because there are a lot of people that are trying to optimize during this time, which is great, but it almost causes a little bit too much
Right.
too much stress.
Right. And just to clarify, you mean staying the course in terms of your loan repayment and investment plan, correct?
I mean, staying the course, I mostly mean with my investment plan.
With the investment plan.
Investment plan, yeah. A lot of people are finding right now that, you kind of find this is kind of the time where the tide goes out and you find out who's been swimming naked. I think that's how Warren Buffett put it. This is the time where we realize like how closely to the edge we've been living and whether we need a bigger cushion or not. Yeah. And so a lot of people are finding the importance of all of a sudden a doctor's job is not guaranteed anymore. Like, how did that happen? In what world did we think we're not going to have job security as physicians? Wasn't that the biggest pro? The biggest, but one of the biggest pros that people talk about being a doctor is that you have job security. Well,
right.
Not necessarily, not even in a pandemic. And so it is important to have somewhat of a cushion just to get you through those months. And I think people are realizing that. So I think right now, instead of making huge, big moves, because also the things are changing so quickly with the government and the stimulus packages and stuff, I would not change any plans. That's my feeling right now, is just to observe our own reaction to what's going on and observe like everyone else's reaction and try to learn from that. Yeah. But and then try to save money as much as you can, because this is the time to frugal down.
I am 100% with you. I think that there's just so many unknowns. Mm-hmm. I mean, realistically, for the last 100+ years, the stock market constantly has this type of stuff happening. Mm-hmm. Even in a recession, I think, there's multiple investors who say the most money to gain is actually through a recession. Not to say that you want it to happen, not that you want all this economic disaster to happen, but by staying conscientious, not freaking out, and, just kind of staying the course with your 401k and Roth IRA and what have you. Mm-hmm. And I think, just like you said, just save. Right now it's actually a lot easier to save, I think, because, mm-hmm. For example, expense-wise, I'm doing all telehealth mostly right now.
That's great.
Not driving.
Right.
Staying at home.
Yeah, eating
I'm making my meals. So it's just, I think it's actually a lot easier for most people right now.
To save, yeah.
Unfortunately, like you were mentioning before, the cushion. If someone has not prepped that 6-month emergency fund, like you were mentioning before, if someone has not prepped, it's very scary times.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, the government is doing what they can to cushion this for people as well. But yeah, it's scary for many different reasons, but I think it's important to remember that a lot of fortunes are made in recessions and in huge dips like that, but a lot more fortunes are lost during this when people try to speculate. And so I would say if, I personally don't feel like I have the know-how, even being a financial blogger and like reading and living this stuff all day long. I don't feel like I have the know-how to speculate on stocks. So I don't, I think the conservative game right now is just, at least just don't lose at all. Yeah. I guess is what I'm trying to say, and trying to like outwit the whole game. It is very easy to speculate and time it wrong,
Yeah.
So I think especially as physicians, just to try to maintain our happy space in our mind with so much going on elsewhere as well, like in our lives and in work and stuff, just for me, mentally staying the course is also like the happiest thing for me to do,
Yeah, like don't complicate things right now.
Yeah.
And, do what you can.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Frugal hacks. I know you have like some things that you do that maybe some people aren't aware of. You have a whole blog about them, and I do want people to go to the blog to get some ideas. But while we're, having this conversation, do you have like a couple of tips where, once you kind of discovered it, or once you start doing it, you're like, crap, I should have been doing this for years. Like, why wasn't I doing this sooner? Are there any favorites that you have?
Yeah, I think, well, the groceries and cooking are like the biggest ones because that's a huge line item in most people's budgets, especially mine, because I like to cook and eat at home, and I have 2 toddlers and I like to feed them well. So I realized that I actually could save a lot of money by shopping at lower cost grocery stores. Like, I didn't realize how much markup there is between like Whole Foods. Everyone knows it's super expensive, but like even just like Publix or Hannaford or whatever. I probably shouldn't be mentioning names because that's really bad. But
they're not listening. It's fine.
But like the money that gets spent on all of this like placement of stuff that looks pretty and makes you want to buy things, like that's a lot of money, and that ends up into it makes a huge markup and on your final price on the bill for for your grocery bill. So I started shopping at places like Aldi and even Walmart. I know people have ethical issues with Walmart, but I don't know. I whatever. But again, probably
everyone has their choice.
Yeah, exactly. But the lower cost certainly helps a lot. The lower cost grocery stores help a lot in trying to save money on the grocery bill. And I started doing grocery pickup, which made my life so much better too. So like, not only did I take my grocery bill down from 300 to like more like 100 to 150 every week, I also save time. Like I also, all I do is like, I go and order it on the app when I'm in the house, and then either I pick it up or my husband picks it up, and that's it. Like a whole hour or 2 are cut out from my weekend, the hour or 2 of like,
what app are you using?
So I do the Walmart grocery pickup.
Okay.
And they have their own app, and it pulls up, your usual things that you order. And you just kind of go through it. It's super easy after a while. So,
yeah, I'm wondering if the other grocery stores, I know like, gosh, I forgot the name. I know there's a bunch of them, but like, I'm curious if the other grocery stores have a pickup service. I'm pretty sure a lot of them do, but
some of them do. Yeah. Some of Instacart is a delivery service.
Instacart. Yeah.
Yeah. So the delivery service works too. I think they're a little overwhelmed right now in the COVID situation, but generally they work well as well. I've had people give me good feedback about them.
Yeah. Any other frugal hacks that you like, aside from just, doing the general cooking and going to some grocery stores? So I tend to focus on the fixed expenses and try to optimize those, because the more discretionary spending is so individual. And also it takes mental energy to try to cut back on discretionary spending. You probably will end up doing it anyway. But when you start focusing on the fixed spending and the fixed monthly line items, it's very easy to get the ball rolling in frugality. So the next thing I like to focus on is like the phone bill, for example. How can we, like the cell phone bill, for example, can we optimize that in any way? Is there a way we can cut that down? Like the way we just switched to an alternative carrier and went away from iPhones, and that opened up a whole other world for us and cut down our phone bill in 50%. Like there are choices out there if you're willing to compromise on a couple of things. That would be a lot more frugal. I love that tip because any of those line items that you're mentioning, right? You're taking that item and you're multiplying it by 12. Exactly. So I mean, you're not just saving it one time, you're saving it 12 times. And then I think forever. And I think about this with myself because this year I decided to move, and I had the option of staying closer to work, or, I mean, there's positives and, negatives to work, being closer to work, or I could live maybe 20 minutes further away and I would save approximately $500 to $600 per month on my rent, which, obviously is significant. And then in my head, I'm like, look, 500 times 12, that's, what is that? That's $6,000. $6,000. I mean, yeah, I'm going to spend a little bit more on gas, but that's a huge win. And I actually have more space, and I like to be a little bit more rural, not actually rural, but I have more nature here. So, that little choice just worked for me.
I like that because it was intentional. You did the math and you realize, like math wise, it works out, and it also aligns with your values. And
right.
that's the intentional choice that works out well for everyone in the end. I think that's kind of what I am really all about on the Frugal Physician is being intentional about it. So yeah, that's awesome. I think so. The phone bills and just looking at your bills in general, insurance. Sorry, to move on with the others. Insurance. The insurance bills. So for example, house, disability, all of the different types of insurances that you pay for. It's good to shop around every once in a while and make sure that there's nothing lower that you could get. I know it's a pain in the butt, but because it takes forever. But also making sure that we are adequately insured, and have enough of that. But just working through the line items in your budget and this fixed spending, I think, can bring a lot of value because not only does it bring you a lifetime of savings, it also actually doesn't require all that much effort. All you have to do is be there and be motivated for a couple of days and get it done. And then it's automatic savings from then on. Yeah.
I mean, I love it. I actually learned a tremendous amount in this conversation. And I know a decent amount about money, but I think, the one thing you said that was very powerful through this conversation was that simple idea of when you make money as a physician, as an example, you're losing 30%. But when I decide not to go to Wendy's and I decide, what, I'm going to make some chicken at home, and I save that difference, I'm saving all of that money. And I think that's really, there's a lot to think about with this, but I loved it. I love that conversation. That was great.
So
it's an
extra dollar saved.
Yeah, absolutely. So in summary, we've kind of hit some tips. We've hit some things about the mindset of saving money. We've talked a little bit about you as well. Was there any question or any thought that you felt like you're compelled to talk about, something maybe I haven't touched on?
I think I was so excited to talk to you today about this because with all the financial mayhem that's going on around us, it reminded me to slow down, and I actually did a little headspace meditation before I got on with you because I was like, I need to be in the right headspace here.
Nice.
And I think I think your podcast is serving such a valuable function for everyone right now. It's just, okay, guys, finances will work themselves out. Everything will work out in the end. Let's just take a deep breath and enjoy the fact that we're alive and our, loved ones are here. Thank God. And I hope, of course that's the case for everyone.
Yeah.
And just try to appreciate the little blessings in this process. It's a crazy world out there, and the inner peace, the peace has to come from the inside. So I'm really glad you're doing this.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the Frugal Physician, how can people find it?
So I'm at www.thefrugalphysician.com. I'm also on Facebook at The Frugal Physician or The Frugal Physicians Facebook group. I'm on Instagram, Pinterest, and Twitter as well.
Amazing.
That should cover it.
That's great.
All right.
Dr. Disha Spath, internal medicine, Frugal Physician. I love it. I think that finances is definitely a key to being happy. And as you know, I'm sure it feels so much better to look at, like you talked about before, looking at your money, knowing that you have the budget to actually spend on the things that you want. And I think that's what we're all really looking for. So I appreciate your time and thank you for being on the Happy Doc.
Thank you, Taylor. I really appreciate you having me here.
And that's the episode for today. If you enjoyed the episode with the Frugal Physician, please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. It's one of the best ways to support us. Also, please share the episode with a friend. We're going through a lot right now as this episode was recorded. It is COVID-19 times, and it's scary. It's a little nerve-wracking, and as was recommended in the episode, let's just try to stay calm. Let's work through this together. Appreciate the moment as it is. Appreciate the people around us, and we'll get through this together, guys. Looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of The Happy Doc.